Hello everyone, thanks for joining us in person and on our live stream. My name is Carly and I'm with Interactive Ontario. We're the organizers of the iON series. Before we get started, I'd like to say a big thank you to our presenting partner for the series, the Canada Media Fund, our event partner, the Bell Fund, and a really big thank you to YouTube for hosting us here in their fantastic YouTube space. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to our moderator today, Steve Saylor, the creator of The Blind Gamer on YouTube.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and watching online. We really appreciate it. Yes, as Carly mentioned, I'm Steve Saylor. I do a series on YouTube called Blind Gamer, where essentially I suck at video games, but I'm really, it's funny to watch me fail. So I have an amazing panel with me today of amazing YouTubers who have not only worked with digital studios, but also can be able to provide a really amazing context into how developers can be able to work with content creators on basically promoting and hopefully liking their products. So I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. So first to my right, we have Shane.
Hi, so I'm Shane Lewis. I'm from a channel called Re-Res. I have a YouTube certification that I got a long time ago because I was a part of an MCN where I managed a whole bunch of YouTube channels. And I'm also now a hardware manufacturer with a group called Digital Depth where we're making the All controller. So I've got a lot of experience in gaming and PR and a whole bunch of other stuff. And yeah, YouTube's my kind of main focus.
Awesome. Eric?
So my name is Erica Sabo. I have a YouTube channel called Erica Sabo. I cover video games and anime. I originally worked as an entertainment journalist, and then I moved over to video production 4 years ago. It's been really fun because I cover media, but I also cover the emotional relevance of that media and how it connects in our lives, as well as mental health awareness. So that's been really fun. When I'm not doing that sort of stuff, I'm also working as a brand ambassador for Nintendo of Canada. So that's been really good too, being able to work together with bigger companies and building my skills through it all.
Awesome. And Patrick?
My name is Patrick Macca. Online, I go by Macca. I've been making videos for more years than I should admit. I specialize in gaming tutorials, guides, teaching people to do something, whether that's beat a boss, find all the coins in the game. That's kind of my secret sauce, and I've been doing that for a while. Get some great videos out there to help people hopefully beat whatever they need to beat, and it's more or less what I've been doing.
Awesome. Well, as you can see, we definitely have a panel that definitely know their stuff. So first question I'm going to ask you guys, because obviously you have a lot of experience working with companies in regards to either playing the developers playing their games or just reviews in general. So when you go into working with companies or working with products or games, what is your general preference of how do you be able to work with them? Is it just kind of your own personal preference? Is it you just are interested in that, or it's kind of community based? How do you go about actually choosing that product to make a video on?
Yeah, I can start. So for me, I would say it's a mix. So it kind of changes, it evolves based on kind of the gaming landscape. For me, I would say half the stuff I cover, I go out, I seek out, I know what I'm going to be covering, I know what my fans or my viewers want to see. So that's the stuff I'm going out and seeking out on my own. And then maybe the other 40% of that is just companies or brands that I'm working with that want to get their game out there, that are sending me emails about their games, elevator pitch style emails, telling me that, this is our game, this is what we want to do with it. If you're interested, take a look if you have the time, and we'd love for you to cover it. And then maybe and that's also going to be, the community feedback that I see if my viewers are interested in something like that. And then maybe 10% of the time I'll just get an email about something I've never heard about. I have some extra time in the schedule. I'll open up that email, and then a game will catch my eye, and then that'll be that. But it's kind of like an evolving, changing way in which I find like that game, the perfect game to fit all the criteria I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's similar for me too. It really depends on the pitch. It depends on the company that I'm working with. It also, depends on what I'm seeking out too. But a lot of times, as of recently, just because I've had the same sort of community of people throughout the years, I feel like I'm getting a lot of the companies that I wanted to work with over the years, and it's developed into that. Maybe not at first, right? But it's definitely following the niche.
Gotta start somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. Gotta start somewhere.
Well, for me, I tend to look at anything that will play a video game. I've looked at exercise bikes, I did take a really close look at a toaster once because there's like a really good OS on it that could potentially play games. So anything that will play video games, any company that comes at me, I'm always excited to find a way to make that product interesting for my viewers. For me, it's not so much what people bring to me that's exciting. It's what I can do with that. A company reached out to me recently, a couple days ago, where they created this capture box that they really only talked about it being a capture box for DSLR cameras. But because it had a really low latency, you can capture video game footage without any latency whatsoever. And you can play a game and record it at the same time on your like one monitor. So I was like, gamers would be interested in this. So I like finding those really weird items and devices. And yeah, that's kind of how I approach it.
Oh, cool. Were there any games for the toaster?
Well, it's like, Android OS.
Oh, okay,
Stuff.
so
It's
it's
like
pretty
finding stuff like that.
Okay.
There wasn't any games. That's why I didn't feature it. But it's that kind of stuff. It's,
Sure.
Finding the exercise bike for the SNES. That is an exercise bike that no one really wants to cover, but when you find out it works with the Super Nintendo, then it actually becomes a product you can take a look at and feature. And there's a whole bunch of companies out there right now making things that they don't even realize appeal to gamers.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned, all three of you mentioned that you had developers and companies reach out to you. Are there products or services that are out there that can connect developers or companies with content creators?
Well, do we all use Twitter?
We do.
We all
Yeah.
definitely use Twitter. It's a great way to kind of get out there.
Absolutely. Also, I find that LinkedIn has been very helpful for me in getting in touch with maybe newer PR companies that are working alongside companies I've worked with in the past too. It's a good way of being able to stay updated because that changes a lot. And then, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I randomly get emails and I'm like, where did you get my email from?
Oh, yeah.
But thank you, I'm flattered,
I've had boxes appear at my doorstep and I don't know how they got there.
That's kind of scary.
So it's weird. Well, I mean, it's weird, but yeah, I know, right? That's my question. I mean, it's neat, but I would say that Twitter and Facebook, YouTube in general, with the About page on YouTube, that's a very easy way to grab people's attentions because there's usually a business email on there. There's a lot of companies out there that create products. I used to work for a company called Evolve PR, and they created a website called Terminals. And Terminals is this great place where you can go on there and you can get any game you want if you're a reviewer, and then you have this instant access to basically a library of games that you can do videos about or written reviews. And there's items like that online. There's also Discord servers where certain groups speak and talk and stuff like that. So there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, and then going further down that Twitter route, like if I have a contact and a lot of the YouTubers talks amongst each other, I might reach out to Shane and be like, hey, do you know how I can maybe get in touch with the person who might know something about this game? And he might know someone who knows someone. And that's definitely a way where we can reach out to people who might be looking for someone like us and don't even know we exist. And that's also a way where we can maybe get in front of a game or have a game be put in front of us. Evolve Terminals is a great source as well. And there's a lot of smaller PR companies who are doing similar things, but maybe reaching out more directly and not having like that kind of website between the person trying to get that game out there and then the person trying to cover that game. But there's definitely a lot of like networking involved. There's definitely a lot of emails going back and forth, between people who are just trying to get whatever it is, get their goal done.
Okay. So obviously, like we have developers here that are watching live and here in the YouTube space, and obviously you receive probably a lot of very cold emails just out of the blue. So when you see those emails come in and you've never met them or never have heard from them specifically, what is it that you're looking for within those emails that would spark your interest in being like, oh, this would be something I could be interested in and wanted to be able to respond?
That they get my name right. That happens so much. I've been called Billy once.
Really?
Not even close to Shane. Like it is way off.
Not even know.
But yeah, that's a big one. Just know if it feels really impersonal, I find that's something that I'm on a list. You just sent it my way. You didn't even look at the channel to know if my audience would even care about this. And I've done a video once where I was talking about how I'm not a big fan of this one specific genre, and all they did was they searched for that word, and then they sent me an email. would you like to cover this game? It's from this genre. And it's like, that's the last video is just saying how much I didn't like that one. And it was, stuff like that happens,
Pay
yeah.
attention. I think that kind of that personal nature of getting an email where they actually took the time to look at your channel, to see what you have to offer, if what you have to provide in your personality, if that will, work together with their product, right? I think it's really important to be able to do that. Like if you know your stuff and if, you have the skills to be able to talk about something like that, I think it's really important. And I think that they should be doing their research for something like that, you know?
Yeah, relevancy is super important.
Yeah.
You want to get an email that's relevant to you, whether you work in video games or not in video games, right? You don't want to be getting emails about something that's completely out of your comfort zone. So, and it's very easy to tell when a company is reaching out to you because they see an opportunity to just get their name out, and they're reaching out to you because, they see that there is some kind of network or relationship to be built there. So relevancy is super important. I would say that wall of text emails generally don't do well. They're very hard to read. It's very hard to get a good, concise message of what that developer wants from you, needs from you, or even what they're pitching sometimes. Rich text media, put in a trailer, put in a screenshot of what it is, and try to explain what it is that you're emailing about in a sentence or less, if possible. Yeah. But relevancy is definitely important, and you can really tell when someone's using the shotgun approach and got their hands on an email list of every possible YouTuber under the sun. And you can really tell when you're included as just one of many emails in a list. And it's sometimes hard to feel like they even care, It's a human-to-human thing. You wanna realize it's happening there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The best PR I've ever worked with for any company has always been very friendly, very approachable, and if there's a concern or a problem, you always want to be responsive, because if there's something wrong with the game, you want to be able to talk to them and address that issue, because it's a review copy or an early copy. There might be something wrong with the game they don't even know about that you don't want to cover on the show because it doesn't represent the final quality that's going to be sent out to consumers. So.
Right. So I would assume the same kind of rules would apply no matter whether it's a PR company reaching out or a small two-person team indie developer as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've had when I think we've all seen the Cuphead folks. That's just 5 people or whatever. That's not a big group. And every time I saw them, they were always very friendly. They remembered me, which isn't important, I guess. If they don't remember me, not everybody does. But they were always so friendly, so warm and welcoming to talk about their game and to share everything. And yeah, I think it worked out for them quite well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be super formal either. I found I've had a lot of indies just literally DM me on Twitter, and I've covered their games. It's again, human to human contact. Just think about how you'd want someone to maybe reach out to you on a busy day, and reach out to someone in a similar manner.
Awesome. So now you've had them reach out. They piqued your interest. You want to be able to review their product or game. What about authenticity? Because obviously that can be if you're involved in reviewing that product or game, that can you don't want to necessarily make the company upset with what you're doing, but also you want to be able to be true to yourself and to your brand. So how do you handle that authenticity when a PR company has provided you this product or game?
Yeah, so I can. I'll go first here. For me, it's somewhat easy because I do guides and tutorials. I don't really need to necessarily have an opinion a lot of the times. A lot of the people that are coming to see one of my videos aren't looking for an opinion. So I can kind of sidestep that problem completely with a lot of the videos I do make. As for reviews, it's just important, again, human to human. The people watching, they want to be spoken to in a conversation type manner. And it's important that devs know, certain issues that might arise in their game. They might know certain flaws and strengths. And I think a proper review will explain the game well and then let the person decide for themselves. So I think as long as the reviewer is being accurate with what they're saying, I think there's no hurt feelings on any side of the process. And in terms of being authentic, that's just you talking to your audience and how you manage that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to be genuine on my channel. That's a really big part of it, and that's a really big part of what makes me enjoy it so much, right? I usually only work with companies that I have that, that little gut feeling you have where you're like, I think this will be a good idea. And even if there's something that I don't like, it's just like when I used to write for magazines and I used to do more journalism, where I would dissect that piece of media. Sure, maybe it's flawed, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a huge disappointment for me necessarily. There might be parts of it that I enjoy. So it's like, it's a bit of give and take. It's like you'll explain parts that maybe you didn't enjoy about it, and then you'll explain parts that you did. But I never try to be too opinionated about it, just because I have to remind myself that the audience is watching and the audience will have their own tastes and their own interests. They might really enjoy something that I might not necessarily like. Like, I don't really like first-person dungeon crawlers as much as the next person does who loves to play like the Etrian Odyssey series, Maybe I prefer my third person, but that doesn't matter at the end. I kind of like, it's like I put myself out of the foreground and I put that product that I'm spotlighting in the front, and just because that's what you're supposed to be focusing on. I think that's the most important.
Whenever I review a game, I try to kind of step myself back and not look at it like I'm playing the game, but looking at it like just an average viewer is watching it or playing the game. Because I'm a video game nerd, so like I know a lot of really obscure stuff, and if I pull out a reference like, oh, this game is so much like Commander Blood, no one's gonna get that. That's gonna be like a reference that like 6 people get. 5 of them are in France. It's a thing that's not gonna be a big deal. So for me, what's really important is when I'm talking about the game, I'm using references and words that the viewer understands and can comprehend, and that way they feel that I'm being honest with them. At the same time, I have like an unwritten contract with my viewers where I don't take any brand deals or brand deals or advertisements on my channel whatsoever. So whatever I'm covering, the person that sent in the game or the product has admitted that we didn't pay this person. And so anything that gets covered on the channel, they know that that is a completely 100% authentic, unbiased opinion, unfiltered from me, and I can say whatever I want. And that's always the agreement I have with all the companies. So when you see something on Re-Res, hopefully the viewers believe that this is actually his real opinion and there's no influence there whatsoever.
Okay.
And just to quickly echo that, I think we all agree in the statement that like just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not for anyone. So I think we all think about that when we're reviewing a game, and it's sometimes important to kind of remove your personality out of it and kind of inject your more unbiased opinion and try to communicate to a viewer what it is that they might like, even if you didn't like it. So yeah, there's a lot of games that get a lot of flack for a lot of different things, but I don't see those as a problem. And then someone else might see them as a huge problem. So it's just important to communicate it kind of, effectively.
So the question I then have is to kind of jump off of that is that when you have like either a content creator that is relatively small and wants to be able to kind of move that next step forward, and including a developer or a small company that they want to move that step forward into having content being created about their product or game, what is the best way to be able to communicate that authenticity from both sides?
You haven't started yet?
No, I haven't. I think I need a little bit of time to think about that, though.
Well, what advice would you give to to a small developer or a small content creator about working with companies in that nature?
Probably, I would want them to actually check out what I do. I would want them to gauge whether or not I would be a good fit for their product. I expect, a professional email, something where they're not just spamming me with emails and being very annoying about that sort of stuff. There's a certain etiquette,
Sure.
right? I think that that's important because I'm treating this professionally, and I feel like the people that you work with should be treating it professionally as well. Too.
I've gotten an email once where the person didn't write their name, and I didn't know how to respond to them. Like, hi, something _ 5700. Like, it's not good, right?
No.
I think there is that personable approach you need to do. Content creators, I believe, need to be able to at the very beginning, with all of us, we had to start our channels from a very grassroots approach, where basically from our bedrooms, or basements or wherever. And when we create that content initially, we're trying to make something that establishes what we focus on, what we're all about. And for game developers that are reaching out to content creators, I would argue that the impression is you have to reach out to the biggest people for the biggest impression. Reach out to somebody that's small that focuses on just that one thing. If you reach out to somebody that has 1 million subscribers, but they focus on 1 million different games, or you reach out to one person that has 10,000 subscribers who focuses on that one genre, you've got a much more targeted approach and a much more targeted audience that will respond to that one video a lot higher. 5,000 views from one view from an author that is basically creating content in that field will appeal to that exact audience. But you release it on something else that just doesn't feature any of the content they care about, it just might not work.
Yeah, on both sides of the coin, I think there's no substitute for hard work. Whether you're a content creator trying to find the right person to reach out to, it can be a lot of hard work, or whether you're a game dev that's looking to get your game in someone's hands. It is easy to download an email list of 10,000 emails of YouTubers and shotgun that email to all of them. But you'll get the most bang for your buck if you take a little bit of extra time, you find the right people. Not all views are created equally, as I think Shane was trying to get to.
Yeah.
If you have a niche game, there's probably a niche YouTuber out there who is making content about those types of games, or the topic around those games. But yeah, there's no substitute for hard work. You got to get out there. You got to think of creative ways to either get your game out there, or get your content out there, or reach the right people. There are definitely ways that you can help yourself. Think outside the box, get creative, reach out to the right people. And or get a PR team that kind of knows what they're doing already, that has the relationships already built to kind of do some of the first steps for you.
Cool. So what has been a positive experience that you've had working with a company or a game developer?
Well, I've now worked with all the major companies that are in the field, and honestly, the bigger the company is, generally they're really hands-on and very professional with everything they do, and they're very personable, and I really like that. Nintendo's always been really nice. Sega has been really cool in the one time I've talked to people there. But Sony and Microsoft, they're all really, really passionate about what they're doing, and I think the right person in those roles that is able to deal with the content creators in a very friendly manner, I think they get the best rewards back, because it's not really, you're not best friends, right? Mm-hmm. It is a business relationship, but it's so much easier to deal with somebody that's saying please and thank you and responding to emails. So I would have to say some of the all the companies that have ever approached me from the largest groups seem to be really the best.
That's really funny, because when I started on YouTube, I only had those contacts because I worked as a journalist, right? So I would always go to those events, but what I really wanted was to work with these smaller publishers for a lot of just more Japanese-oriented games. And that was really, really important to me, to work with those kinds of companies, and also for indie games as well, or maybe companies that work together with indie games to be able to distribute them in an easier way, right? So I feel like now I'm at that point where I'm getting, I'm honing in on who I wanted to work with, and they want to work with me too. So I think that's it's kind of more broad spectrum of things, but at the same time, that's exactly what I wanted all of these years, was to be able to be recognized as someone who cares very deeply about this small niche.
Yeah, and for me, it's all about my most pleasant experiences, without a doubt, or the easiest, lowest friction, most personable experiences I've had. Whether it's working on with something like Evolve Terminals, which we mentioned earlier, where I can just sign in, authenticate my account, and I can request games, and it's too easy almost. You don't actually have to talk to anyone if you don't want to. But it really makes kind of the goal of getting the game you're looking for just so easy, and it definitely improves the quality of work. Or whether it's working with someone who really understands what your channel's about, what your goal is, and kind of what you're working towards, or what your videos are about. So for me also, it's the bigger companies tend to maybe do it a little better. Probably because they have the personnel, the time, and the resources they need in order to get into those emails and attend to those people. But it's definitely the more casual approach and the more personable approach and the ones that just make it easy for everyone, in the relationship that are the most positive for me.
And I think even with smaller developers too, that obviously, like when I talk about the big companies, yeah, they've got like a staff or a PR company working for them. But when it comes to the smaller developers that I've worked with that have sent games to us, it's always been this it's usually like the head designer or like the CEO of the company, because there's only like 10 people or whatever. So they're the ones that are making those connections, and they're the ones that seem to care the most about it. So they're really driven and passionate about that stuff. Realistically, there are so many smaller YouTubers out there that can't produce content, not because they don't want to, but because they don't have the material to produce content on. So if you can find someone that's really young and small and hungry enough, you can get somebody that can make a video about your product quick and fast, and it's filled with passion and drive and stuff that a larger outlet might not be able to put enough effort into.
Yeah, I found that I get a lot of great insight out of smaller studios when you're emailing back and forth. They'll give you a lot of insight about the game making process. If there is a shortcoming and you mention it in the email, they'll kind of talk about why that is. And obviously it's a good reason, nonetheless, it's still in the game. But they give you a lot of great insight in those emails too, which is definitely a plus.
Okay. So on the flip side of that, without naming any names, because I don't even know this is live on the thing called the internet, what has been a negative experience that you've had working with a company or developer?
Miscommunication, lack of research from various companies who just send me codes right away. That's a really big pet peeve of mine, because then it's like expected and they just sort of like dump that on you, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't know why you assume that. It's a little forward. I think you should always ask first.
I was going to ask about that, because earlier you guys mentioned about it. I was wondering, like, would you be okay with codes in the cold emails that you get? No?
No, it puts more pressure on me personally.
I actually like the code dumps, because sometimes it's just easier if I find a day or two where I'm kind of taking it more easy. I can go through the email, find some codes, play like 20 games in a couple hours and figure out if one fits. I like the code dumps, but it's different for everyone.
I understand what Erica's saying, and I understand what you're saying. I agree with Patrick, because like at the end of the day, the problem I have is that, like, do you want a copy of this game? Sure. Okay, here's a 17-page contract to get the copy of the game, and it's like, so you want me to say specific things about the game then? You don't actually want me to, So when you get a free code, it's like, I trust that you are going to look at this without any prior agreements from us. And so when I can take a look at a game, and honestly, if I look at a game and I'm like, okay, this isn't right for my audience, this is a sports game, and boy, I don't like tennis. You know what I mean? Like, it's tennis games are good, but it's if it was like something else that I just don't think is going to work, having that experience right away, it's like, okay, this isn't going to play. But there's been instances where a game is sent into me, and I was just like, okay, I have no idea what this is, and then I fell in love with it and covered it, just because it was sent in like just sporadically.
Well, lucky you.
but there are a lot of games.
Yes.
There's a lot that get sent in that way.
So many mobile stuff in particular, I find a lot, and I'm like, what?
Yes,
I don't know why
that's
I
a
would
very
ever cover that. I'm like,
yes.
Even on my, like even when I'm like live streaming, even then, like I don't know why I would ever cover that.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
So,
Like I think regularly it stopped recently because I think there's some kind of regulation going on, but online gambling games. I kept getting sent tons of messages about that. I won't name any names, but it was just like a lot of these were being sent in consistently, and it's like, but we have like kids watching. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to know what your audience is. If it's a channel that focuses on that, and there are plenty of online YouTubers that do online poker games, and they like to show their streams and stuff like that and show their strategies. That's where that goes, right? But if I'm playing Half-Life 1, that's not the right group, It's just a very different thing.
Yeah, for me, some of the negative experiences, the shotgun emails, the really impersonal emails, the emails where you can tell that someone's looking to get their message out, but really couldn't care less who you are, what you're doing, what you're trying to get at. Here's my Kickstarter, please tweet it every day for the next 3 years, and maybe I'll give you a demo when it's out. Managing expectations is sometimes tough. Sometimes you'll be talking with an indie and maybe you'll say something like, I'd love to find some time to check it out. And if I do, I'll let you know, and maybe they'll hound you down for a video that you never really agreed to make. And it's just kind of that, it's not a comfortable situation for both people to be in, I think. There's never been anything crazy. There's never been something so negative I've decided that this might be the day I decide to quit. But definitely, shotgun emails and expectations are some of the trickier things to handle, I would say.
I'm really thinking about this. I've had 2 experiences in the top of my head that didn't work out very well. I once looked at a product, and I was shown it early, and then when they had promised me they're going to send me one to bring home later on. When I did my initial impressions video on it, I said a couple things about it that I felt weren't very strong about the product. Next week, you're not getting the product. And I was like, okay, well, I know this product's going to be successful, and it happened to be very successful, but the problem was I needed that product to come in to explain those benefits in person because I didn't have enough time to talk about those benefits. So all my viewers now have this impression of this product not being all that great. And it's because I didn't sit there long enough to basically to confirm all these things in-house. So you need to be able to send those games out there to people and expect that once in a while you're not going to get the exact, good response you want, but it's just going to happen. And you can't demonize those reviewers when they focus on stuff like that. And another instance that I had was a company that I really adored wanted to send me a product, and I was all about this. I thought this is one of those really crazy things, video game in the toaster situations. Like,
right.
This is going to be an amazing video. They demanded that I accept payment. And that's something, it sounds so stupid, but they did not allow me to turn down payment. So because of that, didn't cover the video. It would have been one of the most positive videos I would have ever done. There would have been no payment involved, and they would have got it for free, basically, because I was that excited about it. I tried it at several events. I thought it was amazing, but they simply would not accept a non-payment position because I guess they wanted to feel like they're in control. But if somebody's willing to accept a product or a video of some kind of game without payment, there's a reason. It's because they actually want to talk about it. So it can be very difficult, and I would encourage anyone watching that's like at a game development house or production house, if somebody wants to cover something and they want to cover it for free, do it. It sounds like a really weird problem, but it does happen.
I think once you get your game out there and you're kind of ready for the coverage and hoping that YouTubers pick it up, I think it's kind of important to realize that it's a hands-off approach might be the best approach, and when you try to control things that might not generate the outcome you're looking for. Control, you have to manage kind of both sides of that. And I've noticed that companies that are maybe too controlling tend to, maybe get stuck in certain places that others don't.
Okay. So for those who may be on the fence in regards to like from a developer company that they're not sure whether or not to work with content creators, why would it be beneficial to them to reach out to YouTubers or to content creators to talk about or play their game or product?
Well, I can start really quick. So I run a channel about achievements and trophies, and it's a little bit of a niche, I guess, but people aren't playing the game whether it's good or not. They're playing the game whether it's easy or not, and they're playing with the goal of beating it. So in terms of my audience, a lot of the time you could have a game that's not very good. But if it's kind of designed the right way and if it's on the channel and people are it's getting in front of eyes of people that don't necessarily care about its strengths or weaknesses. And there's a lot of games that can benefit from that. And I think that you can take that approach and it's spin it in so many different ways. Just getting your game in front of a lot of different audiences, you don't really know what those audiences are looking for necessarily. And a lot of the time that fit will be there even though you don't even realize that that potential fit could exist. And I think in that sense, you have really nothing to lose, getting your game out there in front of people and a lot of potential benefits.
It's dialogue. You're having a conversation and you're just spreading this information out into the world. Like the reason why I started entertainment journalism when I was 17 was because I wanted to be able to talk about and promote the things that I really loved. Because like a lot of times it was always like stuff that I didn't have people to talk about that sort of stuff with. I didn't have the internet till I was like way older, which is weird. And it was just like one of those things, like I didn't have those kinds of opportunities. So for me to be able to work with a company, it's to be able to like really promote and really talk about, you know, what this is and why maybe it's something for you or why not. Even just like seeing conversations go down in my feed is like really, really nice sometimes, and it's very rewarding because there's people who've been on my channel since the very beginning because they like that conversation. And I think that can really be an asset to a lot of different companies that are interested in getting their product out there. Conversation's the easiest way to be able to do so, just talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, content creators, I've worked with huge channels and small channels, and the one thing that really stays the same is not all of them are making a lot of money. So if they're willing to be talking about a video game because they're that excited about it, that's something you're not going to get from some larger outlets because, you know, for many larger outlets, this is their job. This is their 9 to 5. At 5 o'clock, they go home and maybe they're not talking about that specific role anymore. But for a YouTuber, that's their bread and butter. That's their time alive. They're living through this. They're working a 9 to 5 to do the YouTube channel at night. So when you can work with a content creator that's that passionate and that driven, take it. Even if it costs you a single code for a game, you're going to get someone that's going to be passionate and driven and can, in some instances, become a brand ambassador for you.
I would say additionally, like, we're all making videos, but I think we're all consuming videos too. And I've definitely found that I've watched videos of some of my favorite YouTubers. Sometimes they're video game related, sometimes they are not game related at all, but getting whatever that was in front of my eyes and seeing how, you know, they interacted with it might have changed my mind. And a lot of the times I'll pick something up because I see that someone I like also likes it. And so I think that effect kind of goes around.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how a lot of people don't consider themselves as influencers, but there's so much of that because there's so many people who have all these different interests that they want to be able to talk about, and to be able to actually use that genuine energy to be able to get the message out there is great. That's why you see influencer marketing. I do influencer marketing because that's just, you know, that's just the day and age we live in where we're able to do those sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, I watch all of Patrick's videos, and when I go to stream games online, everybody thinks I'm really good at them, so.
Oh, well. I'm just the opposite of that. As we're going to be starting to wrap up in a little bit, but I kind of want to get from you guys, we kind of touched a little bit on it, but wanted to kind of, what advice would you give to developers that are wanting to be able to get their content or their game out there, and they are maybe I don't want to say afraid to be able to reach out to content creators, but being able to they want to step into that for the first time and reaching out to those content creators for the first time. What advice would you give to them?
Oh yeah, like skill building is a really big thing. And I mean, if you're living in a city, let's say in Toronto, then you have a lot of different opportunities to be able to hone in on skills that you might not necessarily have. Like if you want to learn about community management, or if you want to learn about PR or digital media marketing, then you can just do a workshop on that. You can do like 4 to 10-week workshops honing in on these things and teaching you. And it's a really nice hands-on approach. Of course, there's also programs that you can be part of for 1, 2, 3+ years too. But I think it makes sense to be able to do something like a workshop in such like a fast-paced time, and like if you already have a business and you want to be able to hone in on those skills, like I think that's really important, and luckily we have that all around us. It's accessible. So
I would say again, like to echo what I said earlier, there's no replacement for hard work. If you're going out there and you're spending your life for months or years to build a game, the least you could do is show that game the love it deserves and find a way to get it out there. I think maybe a lot of the smaller studios, the kind of 1 to 2 man teams, they get so passionate about making that game that they kind of overlook the whole process of getting that game out there, getting it into the right hands, promoting that game, whether it be through Twitter or through social circles or through curation on websites. There's so many different ways to get creative, again, to get your game out there. And don't overlook the importance of that step of the game development process. I think it's a very important step that often does get looked over. And again, the hard work will pay off. I am a firm believer that if you go and you approach the right people with the right message, and you go about it professionally but also personally, I think there's nothing but success waiting out there. And there are people that are waiting for your game and don't even know it yet. You just got to find those people's inboxes. And it's not always just going to be as easy as shotgunning an email to 40,000 people. Sometimes, you might email 10 people, but you're emailing the 10 right people, the right 10 people. You'll get more out of that than emailing the wrong 40,000 people.
Instead of reaching out as a developer to a content creator by just typing in the word or the genre of your game and typing it on YouTube and clicking the first 5 people and send them an email, watch them. And then go to the second page, watch a couple more. Then go to the third page and the fourth page and the fifth page. And then you'll probably find a channel that is so key focused on something you think they're really gonna like, that's the person you send the game to. Yeah. And you keep repeating that process again and again. I think with the developers I've spoken to, a lot of them tend to close themselves off because they're developers, they're busy, they're coders. Mm-hmm. They think in huge mazes of ways, and us puny mortals don't think like that. So when you go to engage with the YouTube community, learn about them a little bit more. If you really want to know what a YouTuber's audience is like, go to their Discord server, read their comments, look at who they interact with on Twitter, find out a little bit about them, be kind of weird and kind of stalk them. Just understand what they're doing. Once you understand that market, once you understand what they're all about, you can better communicate with them, and then they feel a little bit more comfortable with you. Because if you reach out to a YouTuber and you're just like, hey, I'm making a bowling game, I think you'll like it. And they go, I only cover real-time strategy games. Who are you? How did you get my home number? That's a weird thing. So it's good to be like really understanding of who it is you're reaching out to, because I think that can have a really big impact. Yeah. And those key people that you find can be the difference between a successful game and one that nobody knows about that might happen to be really good.
And I think it might be hard to budget when you're making a game, but I think there's definitely a portion of your budget that should be going towards getting your game out there, which unfortunately does get neglected a lot of the times. Games get delayed, you bring on additional people to work on some small things, games get over budget, and sometimes you feel like you can skip that step. But I know from seeing it that sometimes spending a little bit of extra money to get either a small PR team or a bigger one, it will have its benefits, and I think a lot of those times those benefits will outweigh the costs you're gonna get for using them. So take all of your options and mull over them. Take the time that's required to figure it out, and make the right decision for your company or your game or your team or whoever it is.
I think the assumption is for YouTubers, a lot of game developers look at YouTubers as free marketing. That's not really what it is, right? There's time, there's like a product investment if you're giving them a copy of a game, but that small investment can have much higher return and rewards than the biggest marketing budget you can put anywhere else.
Totally. Quality versus quantity at that point, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm going to be able to open up to questions here in the audience, and also if you're watching online, if you have a question, you can be able to let us know in the chat, and we will have someone here to be able to relay that to you. But so if you can think about a question now if you want to. But I want to touch on something that we hadn't really a chance to talk about, and I'm wondering if you had any experience on, is have you had any chance to, or had any requests to consult on the actual, like, the development of the game or product? And if you have, what was your experience with that?
So I'm in the achievement and trophy community, as a more specific part of the larger things I cover. And there have been companies that have reached out specifically to me or to friends to design their set of achievements or achievement lists. And that's maybe it's a pretty superficial thing when it comes to making a game. But even if it's something like creating a set of challenges for that game that from your audience's perspective how they're going to be playing that game, how they're going to be tackling it, the ways they're going to be looking at it, that might offer the game development team a little bit of an edge in the sense that you're going to be challenging or getting people to play their game in a way that maybe they didn't think about, and maybe getting people to experience the best parts of their game in the right way, in the right order. it's definitely an option to reach out for a little bit of advice. I wouldn't necessarily use the word consult, like a consultation type thing, but I think that option's definitely out there, reaching out to someone and then figuring out what they're really, really, really good at, and maybe figuring out a way of how that can be used, you know, on your game. And don't think about it as they're really, really good at getting views, therefore we should definitely get our game on their channel. You know, everyone has their strengths, everyone has their weaknesses. I think if you are smart about it, you can definitely get someone's strengths to positively impact your game.
Right. Basically, not all views are equal.
Yeah,
kind of what you're
definitely
saying,
case to case though.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Patrick. Views does not mean they're knowledgeable. It just means they get views. Like, I'm an idiot. I could just be making really bad pizzas and people could be paying attention to me. You wouldn't want to ask me how to make pizzas. I make a really good pizza. But it's like a...
Dang it, now I'm hungry.
There's a while ago, I was pitching Re-Res as a show, and I happened to meet someone in one of the meeting rooms I was at, and he had a product, and he showed me the product, and what he showed me was, I didn't really understand it, but there was this other device that he had to connect to that product, and I was like, what's this? And he goes, well, it's this controller we made, and it connected to the 360, so I was like, can it connect to anything else? And he was like, yeah, we could do that. So I sat with them, I ended up becoming a part of their group, and then together we created the All controller, which originally didn't look the way it does now, and it became this much bigger thing. And there was aspects of my involvement that, because of YouTube, because of that stuff, it gave me this keen insight into game development, or into hardware development, that I didn't really understand a whole bunch. So there were certain things like, somebody on YouTube might go, oh, you should do this in a video game. And it sounds really cool, but that's 1 million man hours. You know, like, that's never gonna happen. So some YouTubers might not understand that, but there's others there that might grasp it a bit more and have more of a keen insight. I mean, we've all worked with companies a little bit closer than some, so we have that better experience than most. But I think there's certain YouTubers out there that can benefit that kind of extension and become those kind of like quality control type people. But honestly, I think that in general, it's just knowing who the YouTuber is and maybe getting to know them a little bit before asking them that question, because you don't want to bring somebody on board in your company that seriously doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right. No, that's true. Erica?
It should be someone who's at least like very passionate about similar sort of products. Someone, like if you're like an indie game developer and you're looking to get some insight on this game you're working on, I think that it's very important to be asking the right people, because otherwise you're not going to get the right insight. You're not going to, like, you're getting bad research.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting bad input for it as well, and it's not really moving you anywhere. So I think taking that extra time, it's an investment, but it's something that proves to be worth it in the end.
Yeah, and it's asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to take an extra week or two to nail down kind of exactly what you need or what you want or how someone can help you, instead of just, sometimes you shotgun emails, sometimes you shotgun questions, and you come up with something super vague and you hope that kind of someone can solve your problems. And that happens to everyone in daily life. I think sometimes taking that little bit of extra time to really kind of narrow down and be a little more specific about things it can be helpful.
Does anybody have any questions at all? Oh, yes, I think it's online. Oh. We're trying. There's a microphone issue. Try turning it off and on again. While we're kind of working that, I have a question actually. I kind of want to ask you individually. So Shane, in regards to the All controller, when you're working on kind of the development of that, how do you sort of are you making a video specifically about the All controller, other than just obviously the one you did for Kickstarter, and also how can you, are you able to separate yourself from being like, yes, this is a product that I helped create, but then also being true to yourself and to your content?
Well, the first thing I do is every other controller I ever review on the channel never gets compared to the All controller.
Okay.
Because that's not fair. I made it. That's like comparing my kid against someone else's. You know, that's not right. Yeah. But the All controller was designed with in a box of scraps in a cave. Like, it was just this idea that just came together and worked really well for us at the time. So for me,
why I wanted to do one video, and I did on my channel, just talking about it, was more, here's something I developed, here's something I created, and I wanted to show you guys that. The video never said, go to Kickstarter, go, buy my controller. It was an intention. It was, here's something I've been making, and this was something I put a lot of effort into. And I feel I do the same thing with every product I look at. Sure. It just happened that this one was one I actually made.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Do we guys,
We are good.
Oh, cool.
We are rolling. So we have a couple of questions here from the chat. So the first one comes to us from Lightning Rod Games. And so this is sort of piggybacking off of the conversation that we were having about the organic conversations about basically getting to know the creators and kind of doing the stalking work and figuring out who everybody is.
Please don't stalk creators. That was a mistake. I probably shouldn't have said that. Well, there's a lot of people that are sending me tweets now.
Unless they really want to.
The second question that I will ask you guys if there is time after this first one. So this one is, in addition to sort of that getting to know everyone and putting in the time of figuring out who the creators are there any actual tools for connecting creators with indie studios, so basically circumventing pricey PR firms?
Yeah, so I'll tackle it really quick. So there are PR firms that can connect you that do cost realistic amounts of money, but if you're looking to spend absolutely none, there are a couple of out there. There's Keymailer. I think there are a couple more. I don't want to name names because I don't know if they're free. I don't want to say they're free and then it not end up being free. Vlambeer, I believe, is someone who used to run an indie studio who kind of made what is, I believe, I might be a little bit wrong on some stuff here, but I think it's somewhat accurate. He made what is like a blank PR kind of sheet, and you fill it out with all your own info. Anyone can use it, and you can post that on your website, and then maybe someone who is interested about your game will go to the Contact Us page. They'll open up this press release. On that press release, they'll have the PR email, maybe the general email, the elevator pitch of the couple sentences to sell the game, the couple screenshots. So there's definitely a way of like having that information readily available, whether it's even if it's something as simple as having your DMs open on Twitter and then reaching out to a content creator and saying, hey, we have a really cool game that's about X and Y. We think your audience might like it. Let us know if you're interested. Something as simple as that. There is definitely, those are the grassroots approaches, and those are going to be free for you. Just like Shane was saying, looking it up on YouTube, finding the right creator. Every YouTuber has a email available on their about page in some way, and that email is going to definitely link to them. So use it if it's there. I'd say there are definitely some free ways to do it, and it's going to come back to the hard work.
Well, conventions, mixer events, whenever there's like some bigger things like that happening where there's YouTube guests there, maybe not like don't shoot for the moon, but there's going to be a lot of people that show up to those smaller events. Some of the biggest YouTubers I ever met started really small, and I met them at like Con Bravo, or I met them at Too Many Games in Pennsylvania. I've met them at all these places where they were really, really small and then they grew. One of the biggest YouTubers I know contacted me when he created one video on Vimeo. And it was like, should I start a channel? And I was like, yes. And now he's massive. And it's just finding those people are the people that they're in that community. They're already there. Or like follow them up on Twitter, see when it's their birthday, and chase them to the restaurant they're going to for dinner and give them a business card. Don't do that.
What is with you in stalking? My goodness.
It works. There are so many different like live events in cities and centers like that. But yeah, what Patrick said, those free places, I think the Key website there, that's one of them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that
There's
works.
more than one Keymailer website, which is basically a website where you can give them an inventory of keys, whether they're Steam keys or Xbox keys or whatever, and people will be logging in to like validate that they own the accounts that they're requesting for. And they'll be able to simply request a key, and then you can go in there and accept or deny based on what the channel's about. So if you're getting a Shane's Pizza Review channel requesting a game, you might say no. There are definitely some free resources out there, and yeah, even if it's as simple as DMing someone or having some really easily available Contact Us detail somewhere.
And what Erica was saying by just mailing people keys, that's bold,
if you sent out that key and they don't take it, then that key you can't really give to anyone else, because in a week or two, if they're Patrick and they're just like, you know what, I could look at that game now, and they try to register and it doesn't work, that's a sign that's not good.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with your keys. You can't be giving them out everywhere, and especially if you put them on a bad website where they're selling the keys, that's an issue too. So yeah, you got to be careful.
For sure.
Yeah, I think actually, I think it was Campo Santo who makes the game Firewatch. I think they have on their website like an FAQ or about page, like, that details anyone who wants to be able to review or play their game, and that's also kind of a good idea too. It's like having like an FAQ of being like, so that you can kind of at least do the work ahead of time, and then if you want to be able to contact further, there is that ability to contact them as well. Does anyone have any questions here in the room? Yeah.
Just kind of realistically, how many people are contacting you in a day, in a week? Like, is your inbox full? Because there's so many games coming out right now that everyone's kind of desperate trying to find a way to get seen. So like, what's kind of the expectation? I'm not talking about the good ones. I'm talking overall. Is like 2,000 emails? Is like 5? Kind of where are you looking at? How competitive is it right now to get your eyeballs?
For those online, the question was, how many emails do these guys get in a day, a week, or whichever?
Really depends on the week. Sometimes, and also depending upon the time of year as well. There are certain times of year that it's a little bit of a lull period, but yeah, sometimes all I ever hear from are from mobile developers who really want to get their RTS out there. I don't play RTSs, but you know, I'm sure someone will enjoy that. And then sometimes you'll just, you'll just be in contact with the people that you've usually been, or maybe new companies that, end up finding you. Like recently, there's a company in Germany that just randomly found me, and they wanted to be able to distribute games in a way that I was cool with, and I was like, hey, sure, let's work together, right? But the majority of them I do end up ignoring. I find that there are very few that I actually do end up taking just because I don't have that time, right? Like I've got like 2 other jobs, right? So this is like the 3rd. I don't really have all the time in the world, and I want to be able to focus on stuff that I know my fans are going to be really into, and I can be really into with them as well. So.
I was going to pull out my phone to tell you how many emails I had just by sitting here. Then I remembered I turned off my phone because I don't want to ding the entire time I'm sitting here live on camera.
Flight mode too, so.
It is, I get a lot.
Yeah.
What sucks is when I get a code for a game I actually want to play, but the code didn't get sent to me properly, or it went to the spam box or something.
Oh, yeah.
And that happened for a big game recently, and I was like, no, I needed that. And like that just sucks.
Brutal.
I would always recommend when you send an email to someone, send it to them once or twice. I keep my direct messages on Twitter open so anyone can send me messages. Don't recommend that for everyone, but you can get sent lots of stuff through that as well. But I always say just like keep up 1 or 2 messages, and if they don't respond, then there's no interest there. But in general, I try to respond to everyone that sends me an email in, and that's pretty insane. And that takes me about an hour a day of just sitting there looking through emails and responding to everything. And believe me, everyone else I work with thinks I'm insane to do that. But for that one important message, it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I would say I get more emails than one person can handle. I would say maybe 10% of them are relevant, which is an unfortunately low amount. A lot of them I'll just straight out of the box delete. They're mobile games, I don't play them. Kickstarter games, I'm not interested. It just doesn't work for my audience. Not that I'm not personally interested. It's just my audience doesn't care about games that are going to be out in 2 years from now. That's just not what I'm covering. So by the time I'm kind of done deleting everything, and then I'll go to actually reply to all the relevant emails, which there will definitely be a few. Some of them maybe I won't reply to, but I'll definitely file them into my brain for a later time if that's something that is relevant there. There can be a lot to sort through as a YouTuber. I know people who have literally hired assistants just to do their email. And it can be a real problem in terms of getting the attention of someone in their email box. But again, I think if it's a relevant game, or it's a relevant conversation, or if it's the pitch is the right pitch and it's presented the right way, I don't really think that's necessarily a hurdle.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question. Yes.
Okay, so suppose you're just like starting from scratch, like you don't have nothing, you have an empty YouTube channel. Then and you want to use YouTube to increase your presence in the geekdom, and get your message out to your messages and what content you want to share out to people. So how can you find that spark that'll help you get the success and or the resources that you need to be able to do that, or one feeding into the other, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it is a slow process. It's a difficult process, especially at first, but I do feel that it's kind of like a snowball effect, and it grows over time. I think using something like YouTube alongside social media like Twitter or Facebook to be able to meet other people who are interested in similar things, keywords are really important for that in Twitter. It's a really good way of being able to connect with other people or other people to be able to connect with you. Making sure like you know how to use those tools that you have in your disposal. You always have those at your disposal. It's a matter of, it's about using those tools and finding growth through there. But it does take a long time. But I think that as people start checking out your channel, then other people will be talking about it. They'll be talking about it with their friends. They'll be talking about it with theirs. They could be friends in real life or over the internet. And then that's where the snowball comes into play, and that's where it continues to grow. I know it took me a really long time. I remember my first month and getting like 100 subscribers. I was so happy. And it's like, it seems small, but I was just so grateful to have that. And I think it's important to stay humble about that and to really think about that. Think about 100 people in a room. That's generally how I try and see it. So I actually feel like there is some worth in what I'm making. And keep making small goals for yourself and reminding yourself that, you know what, this does matter. This is really, really important, and this is a big achievement. And as you keep going and you keep reminding yourself of that, it just builds over time.
Yeah, no, for me too. Like, everyone starts somewhere, right? Even your favorite, biggest YouTuber started somewhere. And for me, I have screenshots of how proud I was when I got 10,000 views. That I screenshotted it and had a folder for it and everything, which now, doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but at the time it was a huge deal to me. And I've worked years to get to wherever it is that you want to get to, and I think it's hard work. It's trying to be unique. It's trying to figure out something that maybe someone else isn't doing already, and maybe finding like a spot where somewhere, an open spot where someone isn't already, present.
I think for all of us, we're all in the gaming space. So the gaming space it's a crowded room, man. There's a lot of people in there. One of the problems is that a lot of people that just start off YouTube assume that I'm just a video creator. You're a video creator, you got to be good at SEO, you got to be good at editing, you have to be good at being on camera, you have to be good at being a writer, you have to be good at social media, you have to be good at just understanding what the topic is you specifically are talking about. You suddenly have to become a modern day Magellan, knowing about everything. Magellan, was that a good reference? I don't know. You got to be good at everything.
But yeah,
a little bit dated, you got to know everything, and it sucks because it's really, really hard. But knowing a lot about SEO can help. Knowing a lot about how to make yourself interesting on camera. My first episode, I'm sick halfway through the episode, and then I record the next day, and I'm getting a little bit healthier. Then I record a little bit more. So that episode's painful for me to watch. But I keep it up there because I like people to see where I evolved from. I was trying to make video content that wasn't like everyone else's, and what basically got the attention I got originally was I went to Cash Converters, and I found a game that they had for the PSP, and nobody cared about the PSP. And this one game happened to be the rarest PlayStation-produced game ever, and it was just being sold for $5 at Cash Converters. They didn't even know what they had. I did a whole bunch of research by contacting the company that produced it. The game wouldn't run on anybody's PSP, so I had to find where the PSPs existed that actually played it. So if you go to a Hilton Garden Inn hotel, they actually, every single one has a PSP unique to them, and inside that PSP is a video game that they made that taught people how to clean the bathrooms and how to talk to people that work there. Seriously, this is real.
Wow.
This was lucky. This was lucky on my part, but what happened was I got a game that didn't work, and the job didn't end there. It became finding how to get it to work. And then when I created this entire video, I had the only footage of this game online. I contacted everyone I could to see if they were interested. So I contacted IGN and I contacted Kotaku. And Greg Miller at IGN got back to me. He shared it out with a whole bunch of people, and Kotaku shared it out. And after that, I started to get an audience. it's not so much about finding what you're good at, it's about finding what you're really good at that people don't know they want to watch yet. And once you find that, you get a channel like any of ours.
Yeah, and I think it's important, really quick, to like manage your expectations and don't make sure you're getting into it for the right reasons. I started off as a hobby. I didn't care how many people really watched. My first video is of me teaching my friend. It was literally a video made for my friend. It was just easier for me to send it to him through YouTube. That's my first video, and it has more views than a lot of my videos, and it's terrible. It's the worst. It has terrible lighting. My dog's barking in the background. It's 20 seconds. It's all kinds of wrong.
Everyone has those videos.
Yeah, but definitely managing expectations, and like don't go thinking about the views. Just make the best content you can make, and I think that it'll come naturally.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us online and here in the YouTube space. Where can we be able to find each of you online?
YouTube.com/Maka91 Productions, MAKA 91 Productions. I really regret that name.
Don't put numbers in your names. That's important.
Yeah.
And on Twitter, and you'll find it. You'll find it if you're looking for it.
Yeah, same with me. So mine's youtube.com/ErikaSabo, ErikaSzabo. And that's basically me everywhere. You can just type that in and you'll find it.
For me, you can just go to rerez.net, and that will take you to my YouTube page, because I really didn't think anyone wanted to type in the youtube.com thing first. And if you just type in Rerez on Google, I'm the first thing that pops up.
Perfect. Well, let's give a round of applause to our panelists today. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank the YouTube space here in Toronto for hosting this event for us, and also Interactive Ontario and all the sponsors that are part of this wonderful event. So thank you so much for watching and joining us, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay!
Yay.